What's up, YouTube? It's Halloween. We're live, and I'm going to do a little special episode for you. I'm going to watch the Halloween movie murder scenes, not all of them, but some of them, and comment on the murders based on my experience as an emergency and trauma surgeon. I also couldn't miss the opportunity to get dressed up for you guys to show you that I'm fun most of the time. Well, I guess not most of the time, but I can be fun too. It's not just all business. So let's go to the chat and see if things are working. Make sure that you guys can hear me. And I don't know why it's not coming up yet. Are we delayed maybe? We'll see if this is a little delayed. Hopefully it is, and we're up and going. What's up, Malachi Maldonado? What's happening? Question is are we on the right stream? I might have to check this out. What up, Jadendry, I guess. I think. Let me switch to cam 2. I got a little special cam 2 here, so I wanted to make it extra Halloweeny, so I made that orange. Awesome. You guys are on. Sweet. Is it going? I don't see it on my YouTube, but let's check it out. Make sure. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween, you guys. It's awesome. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. I want to get started here. We are going, so let's do it. All right. I just want to see the stream. So cool. Let me find the movies I got set up for you, and then we'll do that. So I've got a few of the old ones, and then they're kind of weak, and we'll just talk about how they're different from the new Halloween movie that was done like in 2018. So let's go to the desktop here. All right. So this is a video that I'm gonna link it below. Has all 124 kills of Halloween in the video, but we're just gonna watch a few of them. The first one. So the classic knife to the chest, and it actually shows person dies like right away, but which is usually not kind of what happens, because you have to either cause some sort of tamponade with the heart in the chest. You have to cause a pneumothorax or tension pneumothorax, which takes a little bit of time. I mean, it can take 5 minutes or something like that. It'd be very quick, or it can take a couple hours actually for tension pneumothorax. The other way you could do that is probably, injuring or opening the aorta, but that seemed to look like these stabbings seemed a lot lower, and they also seem like on the right side. So on the right side, you're probably not going to get the aorta, but you could get like the subclavian artery or something like that, maybe. So, but it seemed a little lower. So improbable. The classic choking. This does work. What you got to do though is you have to put enough pressure, right? You have to put like at least 120 millimeters of pressure on the carotids to stop the flow to the brain. So that's tough with one hand. Like, I guess some people could do it, depends. And also the brain is a lot of times fed from, if you don't have one carotid, you can use the other one to feed the entire brain, left side and right side. So you have to actually probably, cut off both of them. Some people don't connect in the middle. Like if you cut off the right side, then the right side of their brain doesn't have blood flow. But most people, they have collateral flow. It's kind of weird. Her eyes were open, and then she dies. I don't know what happened. Maybe he cut her or something. Oh yeah, there was a couple chokings here. I think we're gonna go to kill 4 here. Oh, he stabbed. Okay, this is an interesting one too. That he stabbed him in his stomach, and stuck him all the way through. Probably, I mean, that's doesn't really look like that's going to happen. But we'll talk about the stabs in the stomach later.
Hello?
Another choking. We'll go to kill 5 here.
I'll kill you if this is a joke.
Oh, this is, I think, a good one. Oh, another choking. The drowning, of course, that always works. We get a lot of drownings. We get a lot of drownings mostly in the summertime, and it's interesting because some people will pass out and not really be drowned, but have a brief loss of consciousness, but not actually take water into their lungs. You really have to take water into your lungs. So that does take some time too. It's not just like stopping breathing, So this is an interesting one because, the needle into the flesh in movies, you always see, you never really see it go in. And typically when the skin is depressed, that means the needle actually didn't go in. When you push the needle in, the skin becomes undepressed. So that one, you can tell that it didn't actually go in. Second, the bone is there. So if you're going to put it all the way through the bone, it's really tough. You can't do it. Like we actually put lines in the tibial, or like the tibial plateau, the tibial bone a lot. And it's really hard to, stick it through. But once you can poke through the cortice and then get into in the inner part of the bone, then it's easier. The parietal bone is, tough. Like you can get through it, but it's probably would have a lot more resistance than that.
Wait, Lori!
That's the one I like because it's with a scalpel, and it's in the hospital. But it's not because it's a nurse, I swear. But that's pretty unrealistic. It's a little teeny. The scalpels are tiny. There's not much handle on that. You're not going to lift anybody up with that. And where's it going to go? It's like going to go into like subcutaneous tissue, maybe hit the spine or something. You can't put it all the way through. Even if you did, like, where are you going to go? I guess you could go if you had a longer knife like this big, then you could go maybe into the aorta from the back. The aorta is kind of the left side of the spine, so you could reach that or something, or maybe some the renal vessels, they're there and things like that. But that wouldn't be an instantaneous death. I guess maybe you could cut somebody's spinal cord from that way, but it'd be really, really difficult. Typically, those injuries are like a gunshot wound or something like that, and it still wouldn't be instantaneous. So that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Get away from him! But he stopped breathing! No!
Okay, that's a really good one because you can tell that the knife really doesn't even go through the platysma muscle. So if you're evaluating somebody that got stabbed in the neck, okay, from the base of the skull to the sternal, there's like a sternal notch, then what you evaluate is, did the penetration go through the platysma muscle, which is kind of this muscle that you do like this, you could see the line and stuff. That's the platysma muscle. So if it doesn't go through that, then you actually don't really have to do any other evaluation like CAT scans or operations or things like that. So that looks like it doesn't really go through. It had some blood, but there's these two veins in the front. They're the anterior jugular veins, and obviously we have the external jugular veins on the side, which is like when you talk, you see some people's vein pop out. Those are the external jugulars. Those bleed a lot, like when you do a tracheostomy or like especially emergent cricothyroidotomy. You have to watch out for those because if you cut one of those and the patient bleeds and you can't see what's going on, which is why you do the cric like up and down. People teach to do up and down. I do side to side because I've done a lot of trachs and crics and things like that, and I know where those veins are and know what to look out for. So if you're cutting across like this, it won't be, you kind of see this like blood dripping from the entire incision. It's really not like that. It'll be like two across, like one here, and those will bleed. And then the rest of the incision really incisions don't bleed that much unless you come across like a little artery in the subcutaneous tissue or something like that, or a vein or a larger vein. So those typically don't bleed a lot. And then it wouldn't kill the guy immediately because that's like kind of stupid. You either have to, cut their windpipe in which there'd be blood everywhere, and that would take some time. You could sever their carotid arteries, and that would take even probably longer than that. I mean, it would take, you're talking probably, 10 to 20 seconds or something like that for the guy to actually die of bleed, and that would be like massive, massive hemorrhage. So it's kind of interesting, the earlier Michael Myers compared to the later Halloween Michael Myers movies. They do a lot better job in the old ones, or the new ones, than they do in this one. These are like super weak, and they probably didn't have anybody consulting. They're just like, some kids like figuring out how, let's kill somebody like this. So anyway.
No, I still don't understand.
That's an interesting one too. He puts his thumb through his skull into his brain to kill him. I think that's pretty unlikely, and most of us know that. Okay, so I'm gonna check out. Let's see. I have a couple other movies or like clips here, and I think they're really cool, and we'll talk about those.
Michael? Michael, what the fuck are you doing in here? Answer me! Michael? Michael! Answer me! What the fuck? Michael! Answer me!
So in previous movies, they would get stabbed in the stomach and die like instantaneously. This one doesn't. So this is like the evolution. So this is the one that's in 2018. And so they got a lot better and a lot smarter and probably had some consultants and stuff. So you see her bleeding there, like bleeding down her front on her legs and stuff, and a little bit of blood out of her mouth. I've actually had a patient that got stabbed just like that, right in the stomach, or in the epigastric region, essentially above the belly button, below the sternum. And the knife was a big kitchen knife, and it went right through the stomach, both walls, anterior and posterior. It didn't hit any really major blood vessels. We went in, did a laparotomy, and you open the anterior portion of the stomach to see if the posterior portion of the stomach was injured. It was, and so then you go into lesser sac. You take down essentially the lesser omentum between the stomach and the colon. You open that up, and you can see, flip the stomach up. You can see behind, and that's where the pancreas is. So the pancreas gets injured. A lot of times the pancreas bleeds really bad. What's the 3 rules of general surgery? Eat when you can, sleep when you can, and don't screw with the pancreas, right? So if that gets injured, then it bleeds a lot, but it didn't get injured in this case. So we just sewed up the anterior and posterior portion of the stomach, and the guy did fine. So, but there was no bleeding out of the front all over him. There was hardly any bleeding at all. There was no bleeding out of his mouth. Typically, out of your mouth, when you're bleeding out of your mouth, it's a patient that is that has the esophageal varices, and esophageal varices rupture, and they're they have a lot of blood supply there, and then they will vomit, and they'll vomit blood, or they'll bleed into the stomach, and then that's you end up vomiting that blood because it feels uncomfortable. So in this case, it's like right after she got stabbed in the stomach where she has blood coming out of her mouth, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's unrealistic, but you could hit some other blood vessel, I suppose, but typically it doesn't come out. You'll bleed into the abdomen and not out of the abdomen. So unfortunately, it's not as fun to watch, and so that's obviously why they do it. But yeah, so I don't know how he finished her off at that point, but obviously this is a much more matured production than the previous ones because there was a lot more thought to go into it. So, all right, we'll go to the next one here. Give me a sec, I'm live, I know. Let's see. The next one is...
Away from the suspect. Step over.
Okay, again, stabbing into the neck. So the things that we see when people get stabbed in the neck, so how you evaluate that, right, is if it goes through platysma. If it goes through the platysma muscle, then you're concerned it hits the trachea, the esophagus, the IJ, so the internal jugular veins, or the carotids. So you have to evaluate essentially all of those things. Typically, if the patient is stable and you don't see like a pulsatile hematoma or obvious bleeding out of an incision, then you can take the patient and if it's gone through the platysma, then you can put them in the CAT scanner and scan their neck with IV contrast. So that's the first thing. So you're going to see the internal jugular veins and you see the carotids. Second, you need to evaluate the trachea. So you can do a scope, right, a laryngoscope, and also a bronchoscope just to look at the trachea. And then finally an endoscopy or a barium swallow. So you can have the patient do either barium or gastrographin to swallow that contrast, take some images of that and see if anything leaks out. If nothing leaks out, then it's highly unlikely that you have a real significant injury of the esophagus. And so typically that's okay. What they used to do all the time, if it injured the platysma, if it went through the platysma, the patient got an operation. So the operation was incision just anterior to the sternocleidomastoid muscle. You'd open it up and you'd evaluate, you'd look at all those, you'd dissect everything out and look at everything. So we've gone from everybody getting an operation, and this is essentially, probably in the 70s or 80s, and these are my mentors who told me they used to just cut everybody. And then it went to doing an operation on everybody who had an incision, had some kind of injury in zone 2, which was above the clavicles and below the base of the skull. or actually the jawline, essentially the jaw. So everybody got those. And now we've switched to a lot of those patients can get imaging and don't have to have an operation, which is good for them. Less fun for us, but much better for the patient. So that's kind of what we're doing now. And so this guy, I can see right here, put it on the desktop. So this, I can see he's got a pretty big incision in zone 2 on the right side, looks like just anterior to the sternocleidomastoid. He does have some pulsatile bleeding. And so in this case, you definitely would take the patient to the OR. You try to hold pressure if you can. But this blood is like pulsatile, but it's very dark. And typically arterial blood, if the patient has a good O2 sat, oxygen saturation, it's much, much higher. I mean, it's much, much more red than this. And so when I see dark blood pouring out of an incision, and if it's not pulsatile, then it's usually venous. And those are actually really easy to do. Most of the time, very easy to control, especially in the neck. You can just put pressure, 2 fingers, 1 finger, put pressure right on where it's bleeding, or on either side of where the cut is. And that will stop the bleeding, at least until you can get to the OR and figure things out and stuff. So those are typically not as scary, even though you may see a ton of blood come out. You can just hold some pressure. And even arterial pressure, like I was talking about before, it's 120 millimeters of pressure that your heart is pumping usually. And so if you can hold that amount of pressure, or actually more, right, then you can stop the arterial bleeding as well. All right, I think I've got one more. Let's see.
Scripture. All right.
Say something.
Okay, that was, yeah, a little bit ridiculous. Usually you can't smash somebody's head like a watermelon with your foot. I have had lots of patients come in where they get in a really bad car accident. Typically, these are high-speed motor vehicle accidents. They are ejecting out of the vehicle, either through the windshield or out, the door or something like that, and they're hitting their head going 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. In these cases, sometimes we do see skull fractures and open skull where there's actually brains. You could see brains or brains on the, like on the stretcher or things like that when they come in. I have seen those. But this is pretty unlikely, although cool looking. I would say this is not true. So usually it takes a lot of pressure to not just fracture a skull. It doesn't take that much pressure to fracture a skull. Of course, this guy is a little bit older too, so we have to think about that because patients that are older tend to have tissue that is not as strong, that's for sure. So that's one thing going for maybe that this is true, but I would say that it would take much more pressure than this guy. Although Michael Myers is like kind of dead, so maybe he has some kind of a super strength. I don't know about that, but anyway. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna go real quick to see if we have any comments, and I'm gonna have to take my glove off for this. I look awesome in the costume, loving the costume, awesome. Appreciate you guys so much. That is my Halloween special episode, and I'm gonna get to some more episodes next week. Next week we're gonna have some fun doing some more technology in medicine, and I'm gonna talk to some of my friends who are also in medicine, talk to them about their experience with medicine right now and COVID and all those things. And then I have some good numbers about COVID. Not good numbers, but I want to talk about a lot of the numbers with COVID next week. So that's what I'm going to do. So anyways, I appreciate you guys watching once again. subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. And I will see you next week. And hey, don't forget, if you want to go into medicine and you're having a tough time studying, check out my study course at studyhackers.com. Teach you to focus, concentrate, how to study for long periods of time, how to take tests, how to speed read, all those things. So I have that. So, all right, you guys, take care. Have a great day.